Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on today's recording. So we have Damian Hall, who's joining us via Zoom. So Damian is an ultra runner and an outdoor journalist. So he started running in 2011. Oh, no, he didn't start running, but he ran his first half marathon in 2011 in Bath. So a place called Bath, not an actual Bath. But saying that, the following year he did run his first marathon dressed as a toilet. He has placed 5th place in the UTMB. He's been first in the Ice Ultra, first in the UTMR. He's set loads of FKTs, Pennine Way, Cape Wrath Ultra, Southwest Coast Path, Paddy Buckley, South Wales Traverse. And just to let you all know the sort of distances, the Southwest Coast Path is about 630 miles. So that's the sort of distances he likes to run. Well, that's the sort of distances he has run. He's also ran the the Costa Rica Coastal Challenge, Dragon's Back, Highland Fling, NBS, Laboredo, the Eiger Ultra Trail, loads of different races, and all of those things are linked on his website, which is damianhall.info. He's got several books out, long distance walking guides and some running books as well. And he's got a new book coming out on the 6th of May called In It for the Long Run, or In It for the Long Run. So welcome, Damian Hall. Thanks for joining us.
Cripes, thank you for all of that. Blimey,
Okay.
that was quite a long introduction.
I know, you've done a lot there. I need a drink after that.
I was, cheers. I was enjoying looking at all your bib numbers and races as you were saying that, and looking at all the impressive things that you've done as well, and all your medals as well.
Nothing compared to you.
Oh, I don't know.
Drop in the ocean. So you started off pretty much early in your running career. You decided to go down the long distance route, didn't you? Which is pretty much, I chose the same idea and went down the long distance route early on as well, but that's totally where our similarities seem to end. And you've gone on to great things since. So what and when was your first ultra?
Yeah, well, my first ultra race was the 2012, the year after my first half marathon. And I was 36, and it was what's that, 9 years ago, I think. 9 years ago. And it was actually sort of an accident, but I was gravitating that way anyway. The idea of an ultra marathon was, I think it was already in my head. I'd read it in a magazine about it, but I didn't have any friends. I've lived mostly to be honest, I just moved back to Britain after living abroad for a decade, but I've lived most of my life in the Cotswolds, and it's not fell running country. You don't really hear of these long distance. You don't really, even trail running was quite a novel idea to me at the time. You didn't really, there isn't a massive culture of that, although I've since discovered it. But it was actually, I did my first marathon earlier that year. I just loved, once I did that first half marathon the year before, I loved it, and I just thought, well, what if I could go a bit further? So I did this marathon, dressed as a toilet, because it was a charity place, and I thought my friends wouldn't sponsor me. It was for WaterAid, and they wouldn't sponsor me if I didn't do something a bit wacky. Obviously, I looked a bit flushed regularly, or that's what most of the people in the audience kept shouting. And then I finished that, and it's a great feeling, that first marathon, isn't it? But I pestered this magazine to take some stories about my newfound love of running, and they sort of called my bluff and said, okay, but not about running a marathon. We're going to send you on your first ultra marathon. So later that year, I did the Wall, and I just loved it. I just straight away thought, this is for me. 2012, that would have been 2012. So I think it was the first one. Were you there too?
Yeah, I don't know if it was 2012, but it was about then.
How funny!
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the 2-day version, and it was quite. I think it'd been quite wet the day before or something. There was quite a lot of. It was the first year of it, and it wasn't your first one as well, no?
No. My first one was Glenmore 24, but I did the 12-hour version, and then I did the wall after that. So I can't remember if it was 2012 or 2013 for me, but.
Right. Well, I don't know if you felt the same, but I just thought, oh wow, even more than the marathon. I thought, oh, I love this. There was that real sense of camaraderie with the other runners. It felt like a team thing, really. The scenery was better, of course. The sense of achievement was even higher, because it was more uncomfortable and so on. And the aid stations as well. That was, I still remember that very fondly. Very first aid station I ever arrived at, and there's just
jelly babies
just all these sweets. Yeah. All, and I'm like, they're free for me. And I was stuffing them in my pack, I think. And I left the aid station, carrying much more weight than I'd arrived with, and much more than I needed to. But yeah, that was an aspect I enjoyed as well.
Excellent. And when did Innovate approach you? Was that soon after, or how far into your career?
I think that was early 2016. Yes.
Okay.
So I already had. I guess I was always in this weird thing where I suppose I was still primarily a journalist, but I was trying to do all these big races. So for 2016, in 2015, I did the Dragon's Back race and the Spine race for the second time. And I did my first UTMB. So I was already doing these big races, I guess primarily as a journalist, but I suppose I was improving. I'm pretty sure when Lee, so I had a relationship with Innovate primarily with Lee Proctor. And I'm pretty sure when he first said it, he kind of said, look, we'll give you some kit for your year. I'm pretty sure he saw me mainly as a journalist, in that I'd be pictured in magazines wearing the Innovate kit, and that would be good for them, and I get a free kit, so I'm happy. But actually, not long after that, I qualified. I got in the GB trail running team, and set my second, but at least my first decent FKT, and then did better again at UTMB. So around that time, 2016, was where I started thinking, maybe I should take this stuff seriously. I suppose, yeah.
And when you did the UTMB, was it after the first year of doing it, you just got that bug because the buzz is absolutely amazing? And did you think, I've got to come back and do this again? And that's you year on year, or was it you were sent back by the journalist team to write about it?
It was definitely the first aspect. I think almost always I was picking the races I wanted to do and then going to the magazine or magazines. If one magazine didn't want it, I'd go to the next magazine and say, I'm going to do this race. You should have a story on it. It's an amazing race. So I did it the first time, and it just maybe, as it did with you, it just kind of blew me away, I suppose. There's just nothing of that size in Britain in terms of, and it was, it is, for those who haven't been, it is something like the Tour de France. The crowds are just incredible, incredibly enthusiastic, but incredible in size. And the whole thing, and this does put some people off, but the whole thing is just noisier and bigger than anything in Britain.
It is in sections, isn't it? But there's a long period of solitude.
Yes, and you definitely appreciate that more after you've been through the noisy towns, and then especially up in the night. That's always my favourite section, up in the night, up in the quiet mountains.
You hear the cowbells going in the night. It's amazing.
Yes. And they're ringing in your ears for hours or days after the race, actually. But what's quite funny in the race, actually, all the checkpoints, you almost always know you're coming to a checkpoint because you hear cowbells. They're ringing for probably the runner in front of you. But sometimes in the middle of the night, there are actually cows in the middle of the field, the middle of the mountains with the bells on. You think, checkpoint, and then you're like, oh no, it's just a cow. I guess the scenery is bigger, the mountains are bigger, the crowds are bigger, and the competitors are bigger in that the absolute best runners of the world were there. So that was incredibly exciting. I'm quite a big football fan as well, but I'll never be on the same pitch as Thierry Henry. But at UTMB, I can run with Kilian Jornet. Not for very long, but I could be in the same race as him. So that's a really cool thing about running. So I straight away just thought I've got to go back. And I could see, I don't know, just obvious things in my training I could do better, which essentially at the time was more times in mountains because I just wasn't prepared for those long descents, which were. I remember the first time I did the race, quite near the end, coming towards the top of a pass and looking down just so far below and seeing this little village and thinking, there's no way they'd send us all the way down there. They couldn't be sending. No.
Just to go back up.
Yes. and thinking, no, they wouldn't. And then, of course, they are. And then, of course, yeah, you're going back up another 2 or 3 times after that. It was horrifying at the time, but afterwards, obviously, you get that ultra runner's amnesia.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah,
Did you have friends out there watching you at the aid stations cheering you on?
Oh, I definitely got good encouragement. I don't really remember. I didn't have any crew or anything. I don't remember. Yeah, I didn't specifically. But what's great about UTMB and those races, as we can see behind you, they do put your flag on your bib, and it's quite nice because sometimes you feel like you're representing your country because someone will say, you know, they'll spot you're British and they'll encourage you. So I did get some some sort of British fans encouraging me. So but the crowds were hugely generous anyway. I mean, the French and I suppose I went through Italy in the night and the Swiss. I never see so many people there, but generally, just the crowds are just incredible. It's a really,
you went straight into the UTMB. You weren't tempted to do one of the other races beforehand, or?
No. Yeah, I've been a bit like that with I don't know, the spine race and so on. Maybe that was partly the journalist thing where you sort of, I don't know, I knew that would be a story. Like I knew magazines would want a story of UTMB. Yeah, go for the big one. And I suppose, the more sensible thing is to build up. But there was just something about the sense of adventure of trying to do the biggest, toughest one out of those that really appealed, I suppose.
Okay. Have you ever thought about doing any of the other, like Tour de France, that sort of race, or even heading over to the US for Appalachian Trail or PCT?
Yes, I mean all those things appeal. Tour de Géant, I've had a place a couple of times, if I'm honest, and one year I was contemplating doing the UTMB Tour de Géant double, but quite rightly at the time, my coach at the time talked me out of that, which that is quite a foolish idea, I think, or at least if you're going to try and do well in one of the 2 races.
Yes.
No, Tour de Géant, very keen to do that in the next few years. Very keen on that one. And in America, I'd love to do hard rock. Quite interested to do Western States, although I don't think it would suit me. I do seem to be, I'm a hiker as much as a runner, so I do like the big lumps.
Western's a bit speedier.
Yeah. Yes, and it's hot. So 2 things that don't suit me so well. So if I ever got I enter the lottery every year. If I ever got the chance to do Western States, of course I'd take it. But I don't think I'd be all that competitive if I'm honest. But hard rock appeals, but it's just so hard to get into both those races.
Because that's a lottery for everyone, isn't it? It's not as if you could just get an athlete place, perhaps. Or I don't know if that.
No, I'll be honest. I've tried everything I can think of for both those races. And no, especially hard rock's very, very tight. I think the field there's only about 130, 140 people. So it's very, very difficult. And I suppose now that I'm more conscious, I suppose, of flying, especially abroad, like a flight to America is a lot of carbon emissions. I'm not saying anyone should or shouldn't do that. And I'm not saying I wouldn't ever, because certainly there are some races in America that entice me a lot. And if I get a chance, I would still do them, but maybe cut out some other flights. But it's still excited about going over there if I can. But there's lots to do over here as well.
Yes, there is loads. Are you down for doing UTMB again this year, or?
Actually, I am at the moment. I did miss it. The one time I haven't done it, 2019 when it's been on, and. Yeah, I'm always curious so I'm 45 now. I'm just always fascinated in kind of how close can I get to those top guys. I'm nothing as an athlete. I'm nothing like Jim Wormsley or Kilian Jornet. I'm just not in their league. But I'm just fascinated in how close can I get to them, or Zach Miller and people like that. How close can I get to them? If they make some mistakes and I don't, that still really intrigues me.
A lot can happen on a race to anyone, and you've got the experience now, so the kind of pressure's off a little bit.
I think so. I'd definitely go there with a different mindset. Before I was obsessed with getting in the top 10, and that would probably be my goal again. Like another top 10 finish would be, hugely satisfying and difficult, very difficult still. Each year the race is very different depending on the weather, the runners there, what happens ahead of you. Because actually the year before, when I finished 12th, my time, it's difficult to compare because the course was tweaked, but my time wasn't very different, really. But there were a lot fewer DNFs. But actually, that was the more unusual year. Whereas when I finished 5th, there were a lot of DNFs, I've got to be honest. But also both those years, the weather was fantastic, as in it was cold and wet and snowy.
It can change so much year on year, can't it?
Yes, the 2 years before that were pretty warm, and I didn't like that so much. But I'm still intrigued. It's still the biggest race, so I'm still intrigued as to how I can do there. But I think I'll move on. I'll move on to Tour de Gien pretty soon, I think.
Good. That'll be interesting to watch. And back UK-wise, you've done Bob Graham, you've done Ramsey Round, Paddy Buckley, obviously. Have you ever heard of the Rigby Round?
I certainly have, but if you do that one properly, you're meant to do it on site, aren't you? And my navigation
you can't do it virtually.
Virtual Rigby. But I think you're not really meant to go and recce it in advance. You're meant to sort of just turn up and not know it and have a go, as far as I can tell. I could see. I will definitely do that in the next few years, I think. But I doubt my time would be that competitive, because probably my biggest weakness with that sort of running is probably my navigation skills. But then I'm a little bit lucky work-wise. I can maybe wait for a good weather window. I'd be keen on that one. There's quite a few rounds and definitely some big challenges in the UK. I'm very, very, very keen on. I'll keep, if you don't mind, I'll keep the details to myself. But I'm planning.
No, that's fine. That's fine. And do you always think about doing established events, or do you ever just think, I'm just going to make my own FKT? I'm just going to go from here to here because it's a personal thing for you.
I think at the moment, while I can be competitive, the competitive ones are a lot more exciting, because again, I'm 45. In 5 years, I'll be less competitive. So at the moment, I feel like I've got a small window where I might be able to break or get close to some records. So at the moment, those excite me. But I can certainly see as I get a little bit older, I don't know, there's all sorts of things like the Wales Coast Path. I mean, it does have a record on it, but with all due respect, and I think there are a couple of people going for it this year that I've heard of, actually, but that's going to get more competitive, things like that. I mean, I'd love to one day run a sort of, an off-road joggle or something. Sounds fantastic.
Because the proper joggle on the road just doesn't sound very appealing to me, but off-road would be much better.
Yeah, I think that could be a lot of fun, and a lot of people walk it that way. I could see that almost as a retirement thing or something, maybe hopefully when I'm 60, if I'm still running well. That would be a really cool thing to do, I think. But primarily it's about adventure for me rather than
good.
But while I can, I'll have a go at some records.
And you did loads of long distance walking before you started running, I believe. Have you done things like, have you ever done all of the Munros? Have you done any of the Munros?
I don't know how many I've done. Not loads, I doubt. My long distance walking. Sorry,
I was going to say that could be something for in the future. Obviously, when you've slowed down and you're not quite so competitive for the races, but
yes, I mean, I could see that be appealing. In the past, I've preferred, I suppose, established trails where you're uninterrupted. So I don't know, long before I ran the Pennine Way, I'd walked it, and I'd walked coast to coast, and around the world I've walked, sort of hiked, I don't know, the Inca Trail and the Everest Base Camp Trail, and lots of hikes in New Zealand and Australia. The Munros does appeal, but I like it when it's one sort of continuous journey, I suppose. But there's lots to do in Britain.
Okay. And at what point in your running career did you get yourself a strength coach? And has that helped you with being, well, not injury free, but I don't believe you've had any major injuries, have you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been injury free for 4 years. I think that has helped. So let me think. I think to credit Ian Sharman, when I started working with him, which was early 2016, yeah, he gave me some strength exercises to do. I wouldn't call that being a strength coach because, you know, he wasn't there to see if I was doing them properly.
Yeah.
But that was the first time I really properly thought about doing strength work. Sometimes it's difficult to tell how much something has helped you if you're doing several things new at the same time. But I felt like that did help. And then in the last couple of years, I've been more, well, because I've become a coach myself, I've become a lot more interested in, you know, what exercises should you do, you know, what reps, what sets, when, what sort of weights, what could you do without weights, resistance bands and so on. So I don't have a qualification in that side of things yet, but I'm very interested in it. And I've worked with 2 or 3 different strength and conditioning coaches, actually. Always curious about new ideas. But yeah, I did a session this morning, just half hour. And I think it helps me. And then also for an older athlete, unfortunately, yeah, when we get past 40, I mean, studies have shown that there is a bit of muscle wastage. So it's worth doing it for that. But it also, another study showed it can help our running economy. So that's huge. You know, that's the whole thing. The whole thing to target, I think. So yeah, there are lots of reasons to do strength work, I think.
Okay. And with Ian Sharman, was he your running coach?
I've had a few, if I'm honest. It sounds like I fall out with them, but that's not the case. It's more that quite often. Actually, back then I couldn't really afford a coach, but I would usually do an agreement with someone, including Elizabeth Barnes and Marcus Scotney, who very kindly coached me for 2 or 3 months, you know, for a specific race. So they were great to work with. Then I worked with Ian Sharman for about 18 months, and then I was 2 years I was self-coached, and that is actually the year I had my best result at UTMB. But after a while, I just felt I wanted a bit more input. So David Roach coaches me now, and he's fantastic, incredibly knowledgeable and supportive. And I think he's making me a better coach as well. So I'm just still fascinated in, I suppose, how do we train to be the best runner we can be, I suppose.
I'd find that would be strange, you being a coach for lots of people, yet you have your own coach and you coach other people, if you see what I mean. How does that pan out? Do you just, I don't know, do you just, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Would you just copy what somebody's telling you to do for you telling someone else, or is it just totally different for everyone?
Yeah, good question. The answer is probably yes and no. I think there are some really good broad principles. I mean, and I've done the UK Athletics 4-day coach and running fitness course as well, which brings in some ideas as well. And like a lot of people like yourself, I can see the books behind you. I've obsessively read every book I can on ultra running and listen to numerous podcasts and stuff. I guess there are some broad principles that seem to be mostly agreed upon. And then within that, you've always got to take into account an individual's lifestyle and background and what they're training for. So I suppose that's what makes it fascinating to me. It's getting those broad principles and then sort of, I suppose, individualizing them. But then also almost checking in almost every day if you can to see how things are going, and tweaking things as we go. Because no one has the sort of the perfect, myself included, no one has this sort of perfect training all the time, even though it may look like that way on Strava or Instagram. And my number one lesson actually would probably be that those who can back off sometimes, or just think, actually, I won't do my intervals today. I didn't sleep well last night, or it makes or I don't know, there's some life stress, moving house or something. That's not the same week. That's not the best week to do, your biggest week for ages in training. So I actually think that almost the biggest lesson is to have that holistic approach, about holistic mindset about your life and factoring those things into it, I think.